Lore effects. The most unpleasant one for your opponent is when you attack them, and force them to do something during combat. And what could be more unpleasant for your opponent than having an 8/8 creature with Deathtouch coming at them, when they're unlikely to kill? That will probably also have Trample, and get through to their face. And that will most likely also have Indestructible. That's how I'd like to see my Shelob, Child of Ungoliant. A legendary creature, Spider Demon. Deathtouch, Ward 2. Other spiders also get Deathtouch and Ward 2. When another creature is dealt damage this turn by a spider you control, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a food artifact, with the ability to sacrifice it for 2 mana to gain 3 life, and it loses all other card types. So, we have Shelob, and the idea is to play with cards I haven't used before, and to build a spider deck with good spiders. There are very few spiders in the game overall, and even fewer good spiders. In researching and searching for good creatures for this deck, I looked at absolutely every spider, in, colors, and I came to the rather unpleasant conclusion that the game needs new spiders. Fortunately, while I was getting ready to build this deck, 2 whole new good spiders appeared. That's Twitching Doll, and that's Brood Spinner, which came out in Duskmorn. Huge thanks for that, because they really became solid drops in this deck. So, we have the big Shelob, who wants to devour the opponent's board using lore effects. What are lore effects? These are effects that force opponents to block if they're able to. From the cards I had available around me, I was able to find some good fitting options and put them into this deck. For example, Nemesis Mask, which forces all creatures to block the equipped creature. So if we take Shelob, equip her with the mask, and send her into attack, everything works out great. Or we can take some small spider, equip it with the mask, and force it to attack an opponent. All of the opponent's creatures are required to block that one little spider. And then I can hit face with my commander for 8 damage. There are effects like this on enchantments and on spells. At first, I picked out 10 of them for myself, but gradually, as I played this deck more, I realized I didn't need that many. I kept the classic lure, kept Nemesis Mask, because it's a permanent lure effect just like regular lure, and I left in a few instants and sorceries. One good instant is, you look upon the Tarrasque. In the Moto version, the target creature gets +5/+5 Indestructible, and all creatures that can block it must do so. With this buff, and the ability to give it Trample, we can deal some serious damage to the opponent and, obviously, wipe out their entire board. Next, we want to include a few more sorceries. For sorceries, I chose Roar of Challenge. This also gives the creature Indestructible if its power is 4 or greater. And of course, Shelob has power 4 or greater, so out of the 10 cards that force blocking, I decided that 4 are enough. 2 of them grant indestructibility inherently. 1 of them is a permanent enchantment, and 1 is a permanent equipment. And that's it. That's enough. There's also 1 more that can be played for its miracle cost. But I never actually managed to play it for its miracle cost. So, the miracle just didn't work out for us. But it also gives +6/+6 Trample and everyone who can must block Revenge of the Hunted. It's a good spell. If it were a bit cheaper, of course, that would be great. If it always had Miracle, it would be amazing. But someday it'll happen, and I'll let you know when it does. So you get this kind of inconsistent effect, with stat boosts, but without granting indestructibility. That's why it's a bit less desirable. Because if your opponent has a really huge board, you might lose your Shelob, or some other important spider. As you can see, there aren't that many creatures here. Every spider is valuable, and important to us in its own way. There are also some non-spiders here, and I can explain why. They're included. You might also notice that there are no 1 mana dorks. While playing this deck, I realized that, at the right moment, I really want to cast the board wipe like Culling Ritual, and it's really unpleasant to end up killing all my mana dorks. The deck relies quite heavily on ramp, so I try to invest in ramp through lands, and also through mana rocks, because otherwise we won't be able to get Shelob out as quickly as we'd like. The fastest you can get Shelob out is around turn 3. If it's turn 3, we're thrilled. If it's turn 4, that's excellent. If it's turn 5, that's not great. If it's turn 6 or later, then we did something wrong with our mulligans. That's why we use Soul Ring, Signet, Felwarstone. And there's also a new mana rock that I think fits fantastically well into this deck. That's her Heirloom. It either gives you mana for creatures, or gives Trample to a creature with power 4 or greater. And it's also a Druid card. Honestly, it's fantastic. We also use Mind Stone, Talisman of Resilience, and Urza's Incubator as ramp, and of course, we're talking about spiders. Urza's Incubator can be used here. Spiders aren't a common creature type, so we won't be helping our opponents get their creatures out faster. Remember, Urza's Incubator works for all creatures of all players. So if you have humans and you play Urza's Incubator in a human deck, there's a good chance your opponents will have humans too. So be careful. Next. Oh, and of course, Wild Growth is a fantastic enchantment. I think in any green deck, if green is your main color, you absolutely have to include it. If for some reason you missed it, make sure to add it to one of your decks. Dark Ritual. Among rituals, it seems like you just can't do without it. Especially considering that sometimes I want to cast creatures like these, which aren't exactly essential there. More of a bonus. I was looking for a deck where I could include Phyrexian Obliterator, which says that whenever a source controlled by an opponent, obviously, deals damage to this creature, that source's controller has to sacrifice that many permanents. Just imagine if we put some kind of lore effect on Phyrexian Obliterator. Let's say make it indestructible, and then send it into attack. That's basically a player elimination. Most likely, unless it's a token deck. And every permanent is really important and valuable to them. We can just outright take out one of the players. This is such a button. Most likely, I won't actually do that, because that's a certain level of cruelty, but just putting it on the board and saying I could, that already sets a certain tone for the game that I'm inviting the other players to play in. In other words, it's a bit of psychological pressure, just having that creature on the battlefield. So, what other creatures do we have? Since we're on this topic, this is Brute Spinner, a good spider that lets us surveil 2 cards, and it can be sacrificed to create a large number of tokens. I can create 7 tokens. Why I would want to do that isn't entirely clear. Most likely, I won't be using that option. The most I would do with this is create a certain number of tokens so I can then blow everything up with a Culling Ritual. So basically, I would do this on my opponent's end step. Make a bunch of tokens, then cast Culling Ritual and get a lot of mana from it, because each of my insects will give me 1 mana. So, it's basically a delayed ramp. The most recent cool thing I did with Brutus Spinner. There was an opponent at the table who, thanks to their background, was offering us to put counters on things. And I was in the worst situation. I was missing land drops on turn 5 or 6. On turn 5. And Thanks to the opponent's counters, I boosted its stats to the point where its power became 10. I boosted it with Tever's Stand. I boosted it with an instant that gives Overprotect, +3, and I was able to cast from Hideaway, from a land with Hideaway, a spell that says the creature gets +3 Huntress Provalis, and when it hits face, you draw that many cards. Trample, and bad effect. So, that spider drew me 12 cards. I ended up winning that game. So, that kind of card selection let me confidently play out the following turns, building my strategy based on what was happening on the board. Alright. Next up we have Sakura Tribe Elder. A buddy, a friend who brings us basic lands. We want to fetch both basic and non-basic lands here actively, because we're playing the Urborg and Bulk Office combo. Besides that, we also have utility lands that we want to find. Some lands are bounce lands and let us return DFCs, which are spells or fight effects. We really want to get the fight effect back, and we want to get card draw back too. If it comes to that, and we've used those cards as lands. There's also the Arena, which doesn't produce mana, so we need to find Urborg or Yavimaya so that the Arena can start producing colored mana, instead of just being a land that lets us fight an opponent's creature, and of course eat it. Sakura Tribe Elder is at our disposal. Twitching Doll is a new, quirky card that can be sacrificed to create spiders. If we already have a lot of mana and nothing to play, and we need to do something, we can break this Twitching Doll into little spiders. Or it just gives us spiders and puts counters on itself. What's interesting is that she gives spiders for any counters on herself. More precisely, she gives spiders for every counter she has. So if you put +1/+1 counters on her, in addition to the NES counter, you'll get even more spiders. A very good creature. And auto-include is Boggart Trawler. We need some kind of graveyard hate. We're going to be killing our opponent's creatures. If there's recursion involved, Boggart Trawler should help us deal with that recursion. Here's another good spider from Foundation. When another non-token creature dies, I can reveal cards from the top of my deck until I reveal a creature card. I put that card into my hand and the rest go to the bottom of my library, which, for example, I've shown in previous times. With Brute Spinner on the board, Twitching Doll on the board, Sakura Tribe Elder, and Spinner of Souls. We sacrifice Sakura Tribe Elder, find a land, and get ourselves another creature onto the battlefield. We play Skyfisher Spider, sacrifice Brute Spinner, destroy an opponent's permanent, and get a creature into our hand. We blow up Twitching Doll, get some spiders, and fetch another creature into our hand. So, at a certain stage of the game, Spinner of Souls can benefit from these creatures that are supposed to trigger just once, letting us put Ishkana, Doomweaver, Arachnospinner, or Phyrexian Obliterator into our hand. Of course, it's best if she gives us Arasta. We really love Arasta, or Ojark Slam, but I'll explain a bit later what they do in the deck. The new addition to this deck is Vrask of the Silencer. Before this, there was another 6-mana creature here that, for Collect Evidence, 4, let you make 2 spider tokens, and you could feed tokens to it to draw cards. But as practice showed, for 6 mana I absolutely don't want to play it when I have the option to play my Shelob. And most likely, I'll have to recast my Shelob several times because people will try to kill her if I can't protect her. So, Vrask of the Silencer as a cheaper option, in Golgari colors, with a similar effect. Also generating resources and even giving treasures. Works better for me. She can also be sent into combat. You can also give her lore effects, and she'll also be able to eat everyone. So we can keep paying and making ourselves some useful, this time treasure tokens. Arasta of the Endless Web is a fantastically good spider from Theros, which gives us 1 or 2 spiders for every instant or sorcery our opponents cast, making our board wide, and most likely no one will be able to bother us when she and Shelob are on the battlefield. Phyrexian Obliterator. We've already been introduced to it. An alternative Shelob from the Lord of the Rings Precon. When a non-token creature an opponent controls dies, you exile it, and we can either put the exiled card into the opponent's graveyard, put a couple of counters on it, and draw a card. So basically it's card draw for 3 mana. Or we can take that creature under our control. What's nice is that it's a trigger. Whenever a non-token creature an opponent controls dies, exile it. And Shelob also has a trigger, so we can stack these triggers however we want. Vraska also has a trigger. None of these are replacement effects, so we can freely stack our triggers however we like and enjoy getting all the possible benefits from our opponent's creatures dying. Skyfisher Spider is a fantastically good little spider that destroys a target non-land permanent. If something is really bothering us, we can take care of it. Besides that, when it dies itself, of course we exile it and gain life. We can recur it, but that's a bit tricky for us. But just in case, we keep that option in mind. Oswald Fiddlebender is another fantastically good guy who lets us find our Urborg or Cabal coffers for 4 mana. In general, ramp for 4 or more is kind of a sub-theme of this deck. I use 1 mana ramp in other decks. I use 2 mana ramp pretty much everywhere. As for 3 mana ramp, I specifically stopped liking it at some point, and since we want to ramp on turn 2, that means on turn 3 we'll have 4 mana. So 4 mana ramp fits us better here. And ramp that also puts an untapped land onto the battlefield is just fantastic. And we pretty much never use the kicker. Another good spider is Ishkana. Yes, you need to get Delirium, and then you'll create 3 spiders. We really want to play her in exactly that mode. Plus Ishkana has a button. If we have Urborg and Cabal coffers assembled, and there's nothing else to do, we start draining the targeted opponent for each spider we control. Overall, Twitching Dread can fall apart for exactly these kinds of purposes, to increase the number of spiders on the board. And thanks to Arasta for just existing. Roasting Slim, Deep AZ Grows. Fantastic. I'm going to repeat this word many times because I know how well these cards work, especially in this deck. An amazing creature that, if it dies, turns into a land, and if it stays on the field, goes into attack, deals 6 or more damage, we can basically say it will get another +6. +6, it will get another +3. And draw us a lot of cards. All of this can be said about Ojara Slim. It lets us reveal cards from the top of the deck and put a creature and or a land among them onto the battlefield. The rest go to the bottom in a random order. So it's another effect that lets us put something from the library directly onto the board. Here we want to find our Urborg, Ball Coffers, Arenas, and Swarm Yards. And here we want to find our Doomweaver, Disciple of Reles, and Arachnus Spinner. So we have pretty high costs here, 6s and 5s. And Ojara Slim lets us cheat all of this onto the board, and that's why it rightfully belongs in this deck. Silklash Spider is one of the good spiders. It's rare that we can find a good spider. This spider even has an ability. It has reach, but its ability basically says there won't be any more flyers in this game. When you activate this ability, for X equals 1, with Shelob on the board, this spider with Deathtouch deals 1 damage to each creature with flying. So all flying creatures automatically become our food. So Clash Spider is good. A funny spider. Not good, just funny. Insanely expensive, 5, 7 for 6 mana with reach. But it also has an ability. Tap an untapped spider you control, search your library or my graveyard for a card named Arachnus Web and put it onto the battlefield, attached to target creature. If you search your library, then shuffle it. I decided to include this as a tribute to this funny interaction, which lets you enchant a target Savala with something that prevents her from activating. If the creature's power becomes 4 or greater, this aura will be destroyed at the end step, but it allows you to shut down important creatures. Just take them out of the game. You can keep doing this as long as you have spiders. You can use, for example, creatures that can only activate as a sorcery are completely shut down by this. The creature can't attack or block. If there's something like Marit Lage, we hit it with this web. And Marit Lage can't attack. Yeah, later it might get destroyed, but at the right moment, right before attackers are declared, we tap the spider again. And once more Arachnus Web flies out of our graveyard right at them. It's a really funny interaction that could shut down entire decks. Here's an example, Brian. If you know the professor from Tolarian Academy, well, from Tolarian Community College, but he's probably from Tolarian Academy, then you know that his favorite commander is Brian. One of. And I have a friend who played Brian for a long time. The first time I pulled this off, he ended up taking apart his Brian deck. Poor guy. Here. It's a really funny interaction. I hope he builds it again. I just won't bring that deck against him. Disciple of the Vault from Mirodan, which lets you sacrifice another creature, so we can sacrifice our Shelob. Sometimes we even want to do this. If we have a lot of mana, we can recast her and draw X cards. Drawing 8 cards, that's pretty solid. If our Shelob is so bound with a Doomweaver, then we'll draw 16 cards. Doomweaver pairs when it enters, and both it and the paired creature have the ability, when this creature dies, draw cards equal to its power. Doomweaver's power is 1, but Shelob's is 8. That's why this works. And lastly, a good spider, conditionally good, is Sweetgum Recluse. It has flash. There are 3 spiders with flash in this game. 2 of them cost 6 mana. One is this one, Sweetgum Recluse, and the other is a spider that just has flash and reach, and its stats are 3/6. So basically, the same thing. Just the same, except without the word cascade. And the third spider costs 4 mana. I used to play with them. The other 2 flash spiders, but I realized that, in general, no one ever attacks me. Damn it. I wonder why. Probably because I have spiders with reach, and even if I was completely tapped out, they still wouldn't attack. So I was just sitting there like, well, come on, attack me while my Shelob is tapped on the board. Go ahead, attack, I'll show you my flash spider, and it'll be wild. Nope, nothing wild happened. That's it, everything was going badly. Here. So Sweetgum Recluse, when it enters, it puts 3 counters on itself, and on all creatures that entered the battlefield this turn. Funny thing is, you can actually buff your opponent's creatures. Not so funny is when you hit some random nonsense with Cascade. Super easy. But even if we hit some ramp, that's good. That's good. In any case, here we can hit almost any spell from our sorceries. Any spell from our instants. Any spell from our artifacts. Any spell from our enchantments. So with Cascade, well, we're bound to hit something, since this is the highest cost in my deck. This deck has the maximum cost. That's the cost of my commander, 6. And since this is the most casual deck possible, its mana curve looks just that simple. There are no peaks around 2 or 3, or, any single-cost cards. There are quite a few 6-cost cards. How many do we have here? 5 Preachers, 3 Sorceries, so it's 6-cost cards in total. That's quite a lot. How do you want to play with this deck? You want to play in such a way that when Shelob comes out, you have at least one protection for her in your hand. At least one indestructibility or hexproof effect. And it's highly desirable to already have the land for regeneration on the field. With Warm Yard. Regenerate by tapping a target insect, rat, spider, or squirrel. Well, here we need to regenerate a target spider. That's our Shelob. Without her, the deck just won't work properly. We need her on the battlefield. Accordingly, to get her onto the battlefield, we have a ramp package. Varsi started with an ENT, a diagnosis, 3 visits. Everything is clear here. I also play Bushwhack, because it's an incredibly good spell that lets us, if we have Shelob on the battlefield, fight and eat someone's creature, or search for a basic land. If we're in the early stage of the game, we confidently search for a basic land. We also play block recovery here, a little. Recursion. Of course, I'd like to add Noxious Revival here too. At some point, I even want to put Eternal Witness in, but I hold myself back, because I use those cards in other decks, and to keep this deck from becoming too similar to the others, I don't include them here. Well, there was a Give Recovery. I couldn't help but put it down. Bridgework Battleground is a green, untapped land. Basically a bolt land that lets us return it to our hand, if needed. I play Bounce. Lands here that allow me to return this land to my hand. There's going to be a fight, and we'll find Shelob or have another spider eat him. Lure Effect, Roar of Challenge, Cooling Ritual, destroy everything small. 2 mana or less, and add a lot of mana for each permanent destroyed this way. It's a good ramp. On turn 4, when your opponents have already played all the little creatures, we blow all that up. Play some of our own mana rocks, do something else, and in the end, Shelob is waiting under cover for the right moment. When the opponents build up there, board again, we can eat it. Here we play Damnation. At some point, I realized I was missing one more board wipe. Even though Shelob herself is kind of a board wipe, sometimes you just need a classic Damnation against a single player. I'll mention the second board wipe right away. That's Swarmyard Massacre. I tried to find one-sided rare board wipes. It's a board wipe that affects everything except insects, rats, spiders, and squirrels. First, it creates 2, then it gives everyone negative stats. Next, we have our ramp for 4 mana. Another one besides. The ramp with Convoke, Disorienting Choice. I really like this spell. On one hand, it's ramp, and on the other, it's removal. 2 in 1. For each opponent, choose up to 1 target artifact or enchantment that player controls. For each permanent chosen this way, its controller may exile it. If they don't, you search for as many lands as permanents left, and put them onto the battlefield, tapped. So by turn 4 or 5, you're already dropping some big walls and sands. Yeah, what? Chunks, sands. Okay. It could be a Smothering Tithe. It could be a Restick Study. Of course, that's bracket 2. But is that possible? It is. It could also be some other good enchantment. Like, something that gives ramp or your Storm Surge, right? It could already hit the battlefield. Or it could even happen suddenly. We might be playing against some kind of mono-red burn, and it could be the god Chandra, for example. And these are the kinds of things we can choose. And if its controller doesn't exile it, then we'll find a land. Here, we can easily find our Urborg and Cabal Coffers combo. Next, up is Tempt with Discovery, a classic card. And when it's played, every normal player should immediately say, I'm not searching. Just find your one untapped land for 4 mana and leave it at that. But sometimes it can happen. There's a game situation where one of the opponents is pulling ahead, and the other two along with me are like, guys, maybe we should, team up? And so we team up. And I end up finding 3 untapped lands or board, Cabal coffers, and then things start to get dirty. There you go. Next, we need some spells to draw cards. We want to draw a lot of cards, so let's say, for example, we draw 11 cards if we hit all the targets with Shelob. Target creature gets +3/+3. 8 plus 3 is 11. We want to deal combat damage with Trample. 2. An opponent. I can offer someone 11 commander damage, or get rid of some blockers. That will turn into food. For me. Either option works for me. I'm fine with drawing not 11 cards. Let it be 8. Let it be 7. That's still a lot of cards for 5 mana in green. We've seen Revenge of the Hunted. And of course, the classic Rishkar's expertise. We have a big creature. We draw 8 cards. And we can also cast something for free. That costs 5 or less. An amazingly good spell. Season. Season of Gathering. Season of Gazing. I like the season. I think these are super casual cards. And I try to play all of them. I think I play at least one of them in all my casual decks. Well, not every single one. Not every single one. But I am a real fan. I found a deck for each season. That's how it is. We get 5 counters and can choose a mode 1 or more times, as long as we have pause. It could be either a bustard, yeah, draw, 8, and give, a boost and grow your creature, your little guy, or destroy all permanents, artifacts, or enchantments. So you can break all the artifacts and enchantments and even give vigilance to your creature. So having options. Options are always good. You should always remember that. Next up are our instants. Berserk. Well, for me, if we just pump up our commander a little, just a bit, with some spell that gives it +3 and Indestructible, declare it as an attacker, hear that there are no blockers, and then cast Berserk on our little guy, we've taken out our opponent. And the effect that destroys it at end step won't work, because we gave it Indestructible. Well, we can regenerate it. So we have ways to get around that. Effect, the one that says destroy the creature that attacked this turn. That's it. And I've caught people with Berserk a few times. It's also removal for an opponent's creature, with the words, if you don't attack me, then the magic happens next. So Berserk is awesome. It's found its place here, and it's here to stay. Dark Ritual. Malakir's Rebirth. It all seems pretty clear. Revitalizing Repast. These are ways to keep your commander on the board. Smuggler's Surprise will most likely be played in the mode with +1, where creatures get hexproof and indestructible, but sometimes I use the mode to mill 4 and return up to 2 milled creatures or lands to my hand. So it's also a way to search for lands. It all depends on how and when you play it during the game. If it's early in the game, I'll most likely mill and see what cards end up in the graveyard. Sometimes I don't hit anything useful. It happens. So we haven't actually used that mode, even once yet. It's like a tooth and nail, but a bad one. We haven't used that mode even once. Temuous and Flippant is a fantastic way to save your permanent. Give it hexproof, indestructible, and you only lose 2 life. Sometimes it's a land. Sometimes it's Urborg or Cabal coffers that someone's trying to destroy. Sometimes it's a needle. To Varston Gives. Hexproof, indestructible, and you can even boost its stats. An amazing spell. Gia's Gift is also an amazing spell, because you can finally give reach to our spider, and she'll catch someone, some poor. Flyer. Trample, hexproof, indestructible, a +1/+1 counter. Gia's Gift just gives you everything. Golgari Charm is, most likely, either for regeneration or to destroy a target enchantment. Either one mode, or the other. I've never had to give all creatures -1/-1, but the regeneration mode has come in handy. Heroic Intervention. Overprotect. As you can see, there are a lot of protective spells here because you need to keep the threat on the board. Sometimes it happens that I have 2 or 3 protective spells in my hand, and honestly, if the threat is on the board and I can keep it there, I'm really glad to have them in my hand. It's not too much. It's a magnet for removal spells, so much of a magnet that I tried to find the optimal number of protection spells, and the amount you see in the deck right now has proven to be just right. Not more, not less. Just as many as there are. Trample, hexproof, indestructible. Citizen Tactics. If we have a board full of spiders and the needle is on the battlefield, it's an opportunity to instant speed eat the most important pieces and interact with the opponent. One of the things I like about Citizen Tactics is that we can target any creature, not just ones we control, and offer the opponent the chance to have their creature fight something important on the other side of the board if that opponent is winning. So, it's a kind of tactical interaction. Next, the ultimate tactical interaction with Shelob. On the board is Arachnogenesis. It's an instant board wipe. I remember once, 8 angels were coming at me. Shelob was on the board. I had 3 mana open, cast Arachnogenesis, and all the angels became mine. The most important thing was that one of the angels was Sigarda, who became food, and said that now everything I have is hexproof. At that point, I started to close out the game. Here. So, a well-timed Arachnogenesis, with Shelob protected. That's a really big deal. Archaeodruid Charm. Most often, I'm interested in searching for a land. Tapped. So again. Urborg, Cabal Coffers, all that stuff. I've mentioned this many times. It's also a fight. Spell and its removal for an artifact or enchantment. Archaeodruid Charm is a wonderful spell, and I really want to play it. Next is an instant that says, whenever you deal damage to a player or planeswalker, draw that many cards. If we manage to give Shelob Trample, then it's just draw a lot, as usual. Kalni Ambush is a fight spell, and it's also an MDFC land. As you can see, there are a lot of MDFC lands. Return to. The Wild Speaker is also here either draw cards or give a buff, though buffing is less common. And look upon. The Tarask, it's either a fog effect or it wipes out the opponent's board. Yes, that's right. Yeah, wiping out the opponent's board for 5 mana sounds totally reasonable, because here we have a similar effect for 6 mana and it's a sorcery, while this one is an instant. That's why everything's fine here. Of course, here we need to somehow give Trample, and ideally stand out in some way besides just eating food. But it could happen that, throughout the whole game, there are constant board wipes, and we just can't reach the opponent. That's why we need to stand out somehow. And Shadow's Spear is fantastic. It removes hexproof, letting us fight, and it removes Indestructible, so we can eat some kind of vaccine without any problems at all. Probably the best equipment you could come up with for this deck. And it's already been invented. Soul Ring, Signet, Felwarstone. Herald's Horn. We've already been through all of that. From what we haven't mentioned here. Trading Post. Sacrifice another artifact. Draw a card. Activate only as a sorcery. We can consume insignificant food and draw cards. That was the original plan. But if needed, we can also sacrifice some of our spiders and trigger other spiders. And draw cards. That way too. It's also a way to cast the screaming spell from your grave and get an additional effect. So this is just another piece of recursion, in case we have absolutely nothing in our hand. Has it ever happened that I transformed the tarantula journal? Yes, sometimes. He justified himself. It's also a kind of ramp for 2. Mana plus an extra 2 if you discard your hand. If we played Shelob quickly, chances are we might not even have a hand left, and we're just waiting for one of the draw spells in our deck. Mithril Armor. Did you think the hobbits won that fight with Shelob? No, she won, so Mithril Armor definitely belongs here. Mask of Vengeance, Urza's Incubator. I think that's self-explanatory. Next, a cheap way to get extra stats, and Trample, is Rancor. It recurs itself, a fantastic spell. Wild Growthus. Hunter's Talent is excellent here. At every level, you get a fight at the first level, give Trample and +1, and even draw a card at the 3rd level. Hunter's Talent is effective here. At any level, you play it. If we can get it to the 3rd level quickly, that's really great. Ideally, we want to play it in such a way that we get it out. And then, either that turn or the next, get it to level 3 so we can start drawing cards. At the end step. Sylvan Library. Well, that's a classic. We can gain life, so here we can afford to hit ourselves hard, paying 4 or even 8 life regularly. The card draw here really pays off. Arachna's Web, we're already familiar with it, and we've also already met Luris. Among utility lands, we have Arena. Over 3 turns, we tap a target creature we control, and a target creature chosen by an opponent. So we pick an opponent and say, opponent, choose a creature for my creature to fight. Usually, we tap either some spider or Shelob, depending on which creature we want to kill on the opponent's side. If, for example, their creature also has Deathtouch, then we'll offer up some small spider, like a 1 or 2 token. If it's something big, then we can actually have our big Shelob fight too, so we don't lose our token. The arena is really good. It's a place where we can dump all the extra mana we might suddenly accumulate, and get value out of it. Bazukabak, Demolition Field. We always run Demolition Field. It's a way to get rid of an opponent's land, because with things like the One Ring's Discovery, we might find the opponent a really good land. Let's say that good land is, for example, Cabal Coffers. Let's destroy that good land for them. Let him find the basics. We will also find the basics. We run 6 basics. A bounce land. In Golgari colors, Golgari Rat Farm. And we also play Gildas Commons. Yeah, these bounce lands don't work that well with Surburg, since they reduce the number of lands we have. But trust me, when you draw a Kalni Ambush, or another fight spell, or Revitalizing Repast, you end up being happy about it. Or even something like Disciple of Frail Eyes. I play quite a few NDFCs here. I'm not in a huge rush or anything, but you know, having 7 NDFCs means that sometimes our land drops will come in tapped. Next, there's Mossword Bridge, another tapped land, which you can also find, with Tempting Discovery too. Filter the top 4 cards of your deck and maybe find a draw spell there. Sometimes the situation here is that we actually have a ton of cards. I mean, we can draw 15, 16, even 20 cards in a turn. And you want to keep them because, like I said, recursion isn't that great, so that's why I play Reliquary Tower. In general, I usually ignore Reliquary Tower in my decks, even if I can draw a lot of cards in other decks, but just a few at a time. I'm fine with filtering, but in this deck you want to have a good spider, some ramp for the future, keep 1 or 2 lands, a couple of protection spells, and maybe another lore effect. So here, you really want to hold a lot of cards. And that's where Reliquary Tower found its place. And of course I'm playing solo here. All the other good lands are here too, the ones that let you spread out and give you lots of colors. 6 spaces and 1 swamp. Why is that? Because we're skewed toward green. Because we're leaning heavily into green. And here, black is more of a complementary color. Let's take a look at some opening hands. See what they look like and what I would keep. For example, I wouldn't keep a hand like this, because we only have black mana, and all of our main action is in green. Sure, you could play Bojuka Bog, then play Boggett Troll, and then drop Demolition Field to find green mana, but it's probably not worth it. Yeah, so by turn 3, we'd want to play something like Sylvan Library, but we just can't. And we really wish we could. So I wouldn't keep a hand like that, although having removal, protection, and a lore effect is a potential plus, especially with card draw, it does look appealing. If, instead of Bojuka Bog, there was some kind of green source, maybe I'd be tempted, even without ramp. But most likely, that would just be a sad story. The other hand. Good topic. Good topic. 2 forests, a swarm yard, and Kala. So we basically have 4 lands. Rampant growth for black, culling ritual, and protection for the commander. Let's try testing this one. So we'll have, and we just drew in Nature's Lore. Well, that's just perfect. So for the first turn, we'll play a forest, and on the second turn, tap tap, we can cast Nature's Lore. And with Nature's Lore, we'll probably go for Mirkwood. We want a Veil. We want to find a tap land that Sylvan Library. We'll leave that on top of the deck. So on the next turn, we can play Sylvan Library, or we could also cast Culling Ritual. Maybe it's a good time to play Culling Ritual, if we can get at least 4 mana from enemy creatures and permanents. That would be really good. So in that case, I'll play Sylvan Library and Rampant Growth, and go search for my swamp. Oh, wait, the swamp. No, let's search for a forest right now. We'll get a forest, because we only have 1 swamp, and we're also playing Farseek. We can find a mouse from Farseek, but let's leave another chance to find something. So here's what we see. Here's what we get. 1, 2, 3. We take everything. We hit ourselves hard with Sylvan Library. It's our 4th turn. On the 4th turn, we can easily play the rock. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can easily play the rock and pass the turn. We can play Kali Ambush as a land, but as you can see, we also have Swarm Yard. So on the next turn, I'd probably like to play the Slop with maximum protection. Maximum. Exactly. Or we could even play Arachnus Spinner. By the way, we can play Arachnus Spinner. Let's see what Sylvan Library would have given us. Revenge of the Hunted and a lure effect. Well, no. Since we already have a lure effect right here, actually, 2 lure effects ended up here. We'll go with Swarm Yard. We'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and call out the Slop. And now we're sitting until the next turn with 2 layers of protection. Molten, Rebirth, and Tyvar's Stand. Plus, we still have Swarm Yard. Depending on what happens, we can respond accordingly. We can either accept its death and it will come back, or we can just give it hexproof and indestructible if someone tries to enchant it with something nasty. Or we can just respond with regeneration if it's some kind of board wipe. So basically, we have options in both hands to hit back at our opponent, depending on what they come up with. If nothing happens, then we move on to the next turn. Here, 1, 2, 3. I'm not seeing any shuffle effects, so we'll take everything. As you can see, I'm grabbing everything pretty aggressively. So basically, here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, then another 8, and another 8. So we should have about 8, 8, 8 here right now. Like this, right? Maybe a little more. Doesn't matter. Right now, it doesn't matter. You know what does matter? What matters is that if the opponent puts something on the board, we just eat it. We say, to the target slot, lure. 1, 2, 3. And we just eat it. Or we might not say lure. You can see that we have some mana reserves, and we still have protection. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We can deal a lot of commander damage to one of the opponents, especially someone who targeted our slot a lot, or someone who's ahead, and wipe out their entire board. In other words, set them back. On our own, we'll be sitting here with 7 monks and 7 cards. We have, let's see, 1, 2 protection spells, and if needed, we have instant speed fight. So we can fight without any problem. And on the next turn, when we draw Albuhan, Soul Ring, and another land, well, we'll see if we can figure out whether we can play Ishkana. Yeah, unfortunately, for now there's no point in playing Ishkana. But we can play Arachna's Spinner and control the board a bit. Start messing with other opponents. Use our mana to gain some life since we'll have food, and overall, we're in a good spot. So by turn 6, we've done something scary. This deck is built to do something scary on turn 6. But it's not a fast deck, it's really a 2-drop. And this is a real 2, I tell you. Once again, I drew Culling, Ritual. Once again, I have 1, 2, 3, for lands potentially. Well, here's one of those MDFCs that you can actually bring back with Golgari Rot Farm. So we won't rush to play the Decklists. Ritual. So we can ramp into some mana again. Play one thing, there's a lure effect, but no protection. Yeah, let's see what Phyrexian Obliterator has. Dark Ritual. Oh god, we can actually pull off the combo of Phyrexian Obliterator and Revenge of the Hunted here. And well, one opponent is going to be really sad, because after a culling Ritual, if Phyrexian Obliterator gets that kind of buff, that's basically game over for that player. It would almost feel bad to do that. Alright, bad hand, only one land. Yeah, there's some ramp. Culling Ritual showed up again. And some big drops. 1 land, 2 lands, 3 for lands, and there's even a bounce. And there's also Forsaken Damnation with Dark Ritual. Wow. Let's keep this one. I don't get it. Culling Ritual shows up again. What kind of shuffler is this? What's going on? A hand with no lands? That's what it should have been. I would have mulliganed that. What? A hand with 1 MDFC. That's a mulligan. 2 lands, a rock, Nemesis Mask. Now that's a good hand. A really good one. 4 lands. We've got 4 lands. We've got a rock ramp. We've got Hunter's Prowess. We've got a lure effect. That's everything we want to see in this hand. We want to see ramp. Alright. Oh, and there's even some useful spider. Awesome. And the return of the Wild Speaker. Wonderful. So on turn 4, we'll play the spider. Cabal coffers showed up. Okay. So what do we need to find? We need to find Urborg. On turn 5, we can cast Hunter's Prowess on the spider. Give it +3. Most likely it'll draw us about 6 cards. It'll probably get through for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We found a way to search for, Urborg. That is, with Orzhov Druid Charm. We found a way to search for Urborg. Next, we need to decide what to keep. We have a lure effect, in the form of Nemesis Mask, so we'll most likely discard Revenge of the Hunted. Hunter's Insight is card draw. Return to the wild speaker is also card draw. Accordingly, we need to leave one piece of the extension. The others are most likely not needed. That's why we'll discard Revenge of the Hunted, and we'll discard Return to the Wild Speaker. I kind of want to play a little Shelob, Loath too. Yeah, that's the spider planeswalker. I haven't mentioned yet. She makes spiders from creatures under my control. When they die, she puts counters on herself. I've never actually used her ultimate. She's really just kind of like flavor text for this deck. The Spider Queen is in this deck. In my opinion, she should be here, but most likely she's going to end up in the graveyard. Most likely she'll go to the graveyard, so that later she can please Ishkana with a variety of card types in the graveyard. I want to keep Tomashev keeping. I want to keep Berserk, and I also want to keep Maxer Surprise as a cover and a potential way to push forward. So we'll stick with his hand. Next, the Lurrus effect came up. Here we can say 1, 2, 3, Green Orchid Druid Charm is in play. Find a target land and put it onto the battlefield. Tapped, we find Urborg. Tap it. And we can play Cabal Coffers as our land for the turn. Yeah, in this situation, if our Shelob has eaten someone, we can use that mana and say that Shelob did a great job. Or we can say Mask of Avacyn, equip the Mask of Avacyn to Shelob because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana available. Alright. So, where have we ended up? Here we are, again at turn 6. Turn 6. I don't see. Well, we missed our first land drop. But we have a chance to hunt for that land drop. By missed, I mean drawing it straight from the library. What can we do? We can go 1, 2, 3. Tap 6 mana. Add a green, play Shelob, and we'll still have 1 mana left in the pool. With that 1 mana left in the pool, we tap it and say main phase. Then we have 3 mana. And Shelob can go into attack right away. And here, we can either say that we want to draw cards. And most likely, I'll say that. That we want to draw cards. No, I can't. No trample. No trample. Unfortunately, we won't be able to draw cards. We won't be able to draw cards unless they block. So if we attack the same player as before, the one with an empty board, maybe we'll be able to draw 3 cards and find something there. Or maybe not. Or maybe not. Well, let's give it a try. It's unlikely we'll draw 3 cards. Yes, with the lure effect, drawing 3 cards is going to be tricky. Looks like now we'll have to tap out. Play in melee mode 1, 2, 3, 4, and take any number of lands and creatures. There, we got 2 lands. By the way, these are good lands, and we'll play one of them as our land for the turn. We can activate the green one. I'm completely satisfied with everything. Tamiyo's safekeeping is now active. That was exactly what mattered to me. And Berserk is ready too, just in case of any important negotiations. We're still in great shape. Next turn, we'll be able to cast Berserk on Shelob, throw in Hunter's Insight, and also use Tamiyo's safekeeping to survive after dealing damage. And Shelob will let me draw 16 cards. There you go, and we'll be feeling fantastic. We can either play a forest as our land drop and pull this off, or just do it with green mana. Something like that. We should start with Tamiyo's safekeeping. I want to protect her. Most likely, everyone will just nod to that, not realizing what's coming next. And what comes next is going to be nasty. Now, while she still has hexproof and indestructible, We can even use her lure effect. Just her lure effect. And wipe out 2 players' boards with 2 lure effects. After that, we attack. And, for just 1 green mana, say, cast Berserk to add a little more to it. No, we could have played the lure effect differently. We could have activated Cabal Coffers there. Or we could have done it without the lure effect too. We should have done it without the lure effects, just with hunters, so we could play some of the cards. We have, in hand afterwards. Yeah, that probably would have been the right way to do it. In that case, we could have drawn 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 cards. Oh god, that's a ton of cards. And with all that good stuff, since it's indestructible, by the way, we'll be able to play land drop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If we really want to, we can even play ramp and damnation. So basically, you can play this kind of card, play that kind of card, then say damnation. And maybe, as a bonus, even respond to damnation with Mithril Core to give Shelob indestructible again. There you go. Well, on turn 7, we just go off, after we've managed to build our mana base, after we've managed to get our creatures out onto the board and keep Shelob on the battlefield. We can dominate the board. So this is a deck that's played. For the long game, it's a kind of mid-range. Not control, of course, but just mid-range. Although, we can still keep the opponent's board population under control. We have those options available. As you can see, I don't use any tutors here, except for land tutors, because I really depend on having a large amount of mana. Without the combination of Urborg and Cabal Coffers, it's very hard to play Shelob. Most likely, you won't be able to consistently pump her, and without being able to recast Shelob, things get really, really bad with this deck because it wants to have that Deathtouch value on a trampling creature, and with that combination, that package, that little box, it can really cause trouble for your opponent. Yes, we do have some attempts to do something like, if Shelob never comes out at all, then here's Phyrexian Obliterator for you, here's Vraska. Basically, some alternatives like that. Well, let's say someone casts Drannith Magistrate. Well, that's not a problem. We can deal with it. There are enough fights, and Drannith Magistrate doesn't attack. So it just stands there, untapped, which means it'll be forced to block. Exactly. There are these kinds of advantages in this deck. I really enjoy playing it. It wins. But here's an important point, the mulligan. Ideally, you want to have ramp, lands, and some way to filter your top decks. In that regard, Sylvan Library really helps, because you get to draw a lot of cards right away. Of course, you could play Necropotence here. You could. But why? In my opinion, that would be a bit too try-hard. And Sylvan Library is just fine. It does hit me pretty hard though, it hurts. 1 life for 1 card with Necropotence, or 4 for 1 card. I think 4 is a fair price. Just so the opponents feel it too. What chances do the opponents even have in a late game? That's all from me for today. Next time, friends, I'll tell you about another one of my decks, also from the second bracket. We'll go through all the second brackets, and then we'll move on. And you'll get to explore the second bracket through Caesar and my aristocrats. I wanted to build aristocrats, really wanted to make the most of Zulaport and Sybarite effects. So I put together a Caesar deck that sacrifices creatures beautifully and pings opponents for it. Lifeless. See you.